Welcome to episode 102 of the Sports Geek podcast. This week I chat with Sacramento Kings Andrew Nicholson about digital and cowbells.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals.
And now, here's your host who's worked with 3 of the last 4 NRL premieres, just saying, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast. You may be doing it on iTunes, on Stitcher, on SoundCloud, or my favourite podcasting app, Pocket Casts, I should say. Get it right. Or you might be listening on sportsgeekhq.com. I know a few people have had hassles recently. Those of you who are on Apple and have upgraded to, I think it is 901 and then 902, have had hassles with the iTunes podcasting app. I have been directing everybody to the Pocket Casts app from the guys at Shift Jelly. I can't speak highly enough of the app. It's really good in that you can select certain episodes that always download via Wi-Fi. You can set up different playlists to say this podcast goes into my commute podcast, this one goes into my gym podcast, that kind of thing. So if you are looking for a solution and you're getting frustrated with the iTunes, I know a lot of you do listen via the iTunes podcasting app. I know that from my stats with Libsyn. But if you are a bit frustrated and you're looking for a new app, Pocket Casts is the way to go. And there's even a custom link. So if you go to sportsgeekhq.com/pocketcasts, that's where you'll find the Sports Geek podcast on Pocket Cast, and you can download it at the same time. Yes, it's $5, but you probably paid more than that for your bad coffee this morning. So support independent developers like the guys at Shift Jelly, because they do produce a great podcast. And a big congratulations to the North Queensland Cowboys on winning the NRL Premiership last week. That intro sting from DJ Joel saying three of the 4 last NRL premiers, that was recorded a couple of months ago. It still holds true, but it's actually been the last 3 premiers now, with the Cowboys, the Rabbitohs last year, and the Melbourne Storm the year before, and Manly back in 2011. So it's 4 out of the last 5 NRL premiers have been Sports Geek clients. So big congratulations to the North Queensland Cowboys, especially the people that I work with, the team behind the team, Cynthia Cormack, Clinton, Simone, Brooke, all the marketing, Steve Mitchell, and the commercial guys behind the scenes. But then obviously a big congratulations to head coach Paul Green and Jonathan Thurston, who pretty much had the fairy tale finish to get a try. They got the try on the final play of the game to level the scores. Jonathan Thurston had the shot for the extra point to win the game. It just missed. But then with Golden Point activated, he was able to get the goal a couple of minutes later for the Cowboys to be victorious. And if you don't know Jonathan Thurston, terrific bloke. I did some training with the guys there at the Cowboys on all things social and digital and how they can use it. He has one of the best laughs in sports, and he must still be winning. Must still be laughing after both winning the Clive Churchill Medal, NRL Premiership, and recently just also won the Player of the Year for the Cowboys. So if you haven't heard Jonathan Thurston laugh, it is absolutely infectious. I can watch that. I can listen to Jonathan Thurston laugh on a loop for days, and always makes me happy. My guest today is Andrew Nicholson from the Sacramento Kings. We've known each other for a few years via Twitter and LinkedIn and the like. It was good to finally meet him in real life at SEAT in San Francisco, and I really did enjoy it. It was one of my favourite panels at SEAT, was the one on developing a voice in social with guys like Dwayne Hankins and Melissa from the Jets. Andrew was part of that panel. It was a really great discussion. So this is my interview with Andrew Nicholson from the Sacramento Kings. Very happy to welcome a good friend of mine. Finally met him in real life at Seat in San Francisco, Senior Director of Digital at the Sacramento Kings, Andrew Nicholson. Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Hey, Sean, great to be here. Thanks so much for the invite.
Well, it has been a long time coming. I think we did chat almost 4 or 5 years ago, way before I was in podcasting space, talking about what you were doing at the Kings. So I'm really glad to have you on. Really glad to finally meet you. I love making those in real life connections at conferences like Seat.
I know, it's funny how the world of social media works. It definitely felt like we had met years ago, even though it was only online. And then to finally meet at Seat was great. And not only that, not to meet, but team up for a championship run was quite fun on the softball diamond.
Yes, exactly. You were the leadoff man for Team Digital. You started the ball rolling. Getting a hit in that first game. I think all success came from there.
I certainly can't take it all as a credit to all the awesome teammates that we had.
Yeah, so you've been at the Sacramento Kings since 2006. 9 years. Coming up on 10 years next year, and you've gone through a lot of change in that time with ownership change. There's a whole lot of rallying around whether Sacramento Kings would stay in Sacramento, and now in 2013 you've got new ownership under Vivek Ranadive. What have been some of the changes internally, more from a digital and a tech point of view? In that ownership change?
Yeah, so since the ownership change took place in 2013, I want to say just over about 26 months ago, ownership group led by Vivek Ranadive and his tech-based ownership group, there's been a significant focus on NBA 3.0. That's our calling card, and it's predicated on 3 vectors, if you will. Enhancing the fan experience through technology, expanding the game or the team's global brand, and utilizing the game of basketball for social good. And so with those 3 things in mind, being a part of the digital team, we're focused on delivering aspects of that every day of the year, 24/7, to Kings fans all over the world. And so I feel very fortunate to have been in this business going on a decade, as you alluded to. I grew up a huge basketball fan and have once dreamed of playing in the NBA, and now I get to work here in the digital space, which is awesome. And being a part of the new ownership group and the new organization has been really rewarding, and certainly put a lot of focus on the digital side of things. And so I'm excited to be here today to share a little bit more about what we're doing.
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of the NBA teams now, and I spoke to Brooke at the Nets recently about this challenge of pushing out your brand globally and reaching that global audience, because that's the opportunity that digital offers you, and the NBA is a complete, it's a global product, but then also balancing that with the local engagement with your community, which is super important to stay tied and stay really connected with your local community. So that's a fine balancing act for you to be pushing that global initiative to grow the Sacramento Kings brand, globally, but then also making sure that you're super connected with the local community, because they're the people that are coming to the games. They're the people that show their support. They're the people that that the Kings the identity comes from your fan base.
Absolutely, and I think social media has really evolved the way that we're able to connect with our fans. So now fans in India or China have the ability to have oftentimes the same access as those who are literally living next door to us. They can communicate with us in real time, whether it's through Weibo, whether it's through Twitter, Instagram, etc., the wide range of social platforms available. It really makes our job a lot of fun, because we're all passionate about basketball. We're all passionate about the Sacramento Kings, and being able to tell that story through a variety of means and then connect with fans who care about the same things is really fun.
So you're going through the same phase that a lot of teams are going through. I spoke to Todd Cathlish at the Red Wings, and they've got a new stadium on the horizon. You've got the Golden One Centre that's opening in October 2016. So how are you building up that story and keeping the fans getting really excited about the new stadium, and sort of telling that story behind the scenes as the stadium is coming along?
Yeah, so we're just 13 months away from the grand opening of the new venue. We're all very excited. Fans are certainly excited as well. And we're doing a variety of different things, definitely leaning into the first vector I mentioned, utilizing technology to enhance the fan experience. one of those ways is we're using a drone cam. Even before demolition, we started flying a drone or working with a third party to fly a drone over the site where the new venue is going to be in downtown Sacramento. And now as the project has evolved from demolition to now building it up, and we're just a month away from the roof being closed off, the drone has continued to fly a pattern to help people see the progress. And so we're able to share that on a regular basis across our social platforms and give people insight into all the progress. In addition to that, we're using live cams, which have been used by other venues as well, but fans still really enjoy being able to see live updates, not only photos, but video of the progress of the site. And then our sales teams are also able to use virtual and augmented reality to give people a look at the venue, because we don't have a full stadium that they can physically go to. We have an experience center where they can try an Oculus Rift and get an immersive experience of what it would be like to stand on the plaza, walk into the building, go into one of our lofts, go into one of our suites, see it courtside. In the experience, I think that I shared with you, one of our players actually runs out on the court as if he's being introduced. So it's a really powerful way for us to give fans who otherwise wouldn't have a perspective of what seating or what views would look like without a venue, of what the new venue is going to be like when it opens up.
Yeah.
And then on a related note, the augmented reality we're using is an app, and then it's more of an exterior view, and you can see how we're using energy and the different setups for different acts that may come in.
So terrific, yeah. So I'll have a link to the Oculus Rift footage, so you can actually get you get that point of view of standing in the court, and a player runs up to you, and you can start feeling what that new stadium is. I love the fact that you can put live cams in a stadium being built, and sports fans are they will literally tune in to watch paint dry. That's effectively what that is the level of avidity that sports fans have, that they want to see what the new stadium is going to be like. But you're not only doing that from a drone point of view, as far as getting people along the story and how it's going to look and stuff like that, but you're also doing fun content to make sure the Sacramento community, but also the national national and international community in some cases, know that the new stadium is coming. You did that with a little bit of a prank around April Fools with the new stadium. Yeah. You want to tell us, take us through that, just sort of how the idea came about, but then how it sort of got picked up by the media?
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to have fun if there's a national day. It seems like nowadays there's a national day being celebrated regularly. So one of the original national days that was widely recognized certainly was April Fools. And so this year we had a little fun with it, leaning into our new venue being built and getting ready to open. We've made a variety of different milestone announcements. And so we wanted to think of a creative way that we could share a fun update that people may take seriously, but also at the end of the day, when we reveal it's a joke, people would quickly understand that it was just for fun. And so we announced that the city, and its fan base, which is known for the infamous cowbell back in the days when the team made the playoffs for almost a decade straight, causing a ruckus for the opposing teams, we announced, and it's still revered by Kings Nation and still oftentimes heard at Kings games here in Sacramento, we revealed that a huge cowbell was going to be mounted on the roof of the stadium with a wide range of tech-savvy improvements and features. And so it was fun to share that. It was quickly picked up by fans and hotly debated about whether or not it was real or not. Some fans were totally against it. Some were very in favor of it. So it definitely drove a fun conversation on April Fools. National media picked it up. Local media picked it up and shared the story. So it was a fun way for us to be engaged and connect with our fans and share compelling content on April 1st. And so it was a lot of fun. The second year in a row, we did something fun for April Fools.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, because it's effectively a good inside joke for your fans, because most of your fans would have, got the joke already. But and media is playing along with the story. They're always looking for that April Fool's angle to push out. So and I think it's a nice little hat tip to your fans, because the cowbell is synonymous with the Kings crowd and how crazy it does get.
Yeah, it was. I guess the best part about our job is being able to be in tune with Kings Nation, in real time, understand their feedback and understand their perspective, be able to share it internally, and then in situations like this, think about how we can take that feedback and take things that are true to the team or true to the team story that we can have fun with. So that's all we were trying to do on that day, and fortunately it went well.
So one of the big points, you're on the panel at SEAT where we talked about developing your voice online, and we discussed some of the pros and cons around snark and the type of voice and the banter that happens on Twitter. And one of the points that you raised was back to one of these the tenets that you were talking about before around social good, and around it's really one of the key planks of the content and the drivers for a lot of your content. What are some of the things that you've been doing in that space from a Kings point of view?
Yeah, so at the conference, as you highlighted, there was a lot of discussion around how to use snark and be witty on social media, which we can appreciate and we like to do from time to time. But beyond being witty or funny, it can also be a really powerful place, as everyone who uses social media can see very easily, to bring people together and show support for meaningful initiatives. And so over a year ago, there was an initiative, Proud to Play, and we were one of the first teams to openly adopt that and show our support for equality and for inclusiveness. So we created a video to share on Pride Day here in Sacramento, which was well received. And then this year we had a wide range of employees of the Sacramento Kings who participated in the Pride Walk here in Sacramento again. And so we shared social updates of our participation there, again, to show our commitment to everyone and inclusiveness. And then a major milestone announcement by the Supreme Court shortly thereafter this summer about the Supreme Court ruling in favor of same-sex marriages. We were one of the initial sports teams to show our excitement and support of the decision. So that's one way in which we're trying to use social media, and it's just the beginning. I mean, those are just a few examples, and there's much more that we can do to show our support for things that are, as we like to say, bigger than basketball. And then on the court side, but related to off the court, one of our players, Ben McLemore, always wanted to give back to not only his local community here in Sacramento, but his hometown in the Midwest. And so he had an upbringing where he didn't always know if he'd have a hot meal. He didn't know if he'd have running water in his house. And so it was really important to him to be able to give back to those in need. And so this season, for his hard work in the community, he was recognized with an NBA award for commitment to the community in November. And then ultimately at the end of the season, he was up for a season-long award against guys like Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook and All-Stars. So being on a team that didn't have a winning record, and he's only a second-year guy, we had an uphill battle to get the word out for fans to vote for him. And so we rallied as many departments to think of a creative way that we could tell his story that was so powerful, of a guy who overcame the odds to make it to the NBA, and now he's making an impact here in Sacramento. Fans love Ben. He's a great guy. He has some funny commercials. And so as a digital department, we ended up meeting with him and filming, I think it's like 6 videos as part of a series to share his story about perseverance and making it to the league and believing in oneself, while also trying to tie in that fans could vote for him and that he's up for this award. So it was somewhat of a complex problem that we had to solve for, but it was a lot of fun because the videos were well received. We were able to help Ben tell his story and recognize him for his hard work, and he ended up finishing in the top half of the voting. And so hopefully in the years to come, we'll be able to get him to earn that number 1 spot for all of his hard work in the community.
And the good thing with all the stuff that you're doing in that space, it's not just on social. It's really it is on game day, and it is in the community. Like, I love the Forever Together game day presentation, putting the rainbow on the court as part of the game night presentation, and those kind of things. So it is completely integrated across the organisation. It's not just, hey guys, we've changed. It's not just we've just changed our avatar to support this. It's something that's happening across the organisation.
Yeah, I mean, led by our ownership group, they're committed to progressiveness. I mean, that's really what NBA 3.0 stands for. So none of the stuff that we're posting is just the digital team one-off. I mean, it's from top to bottom organizational support of a wide range of social initiatives, and certainly our support for Pride is one example of it.
So I want to dive into you and your content team and everything that happens in the Kings digital team. I hear it in many conferences. Content is king, and people say that a lot. But you've got a twist on that phrase as far as the Kings go.
Yeah, we've had a history of saying content is king, content is king, and the Kings are content. So, I've talked about the initiatives of the organization. When we break it down to our department specifically, we think about every day how can we create and share compelling content, and how can we engage with fans. And ultimately, we're trying to tie those together in a way that is most meaningful and most impactful for Kings fans around the world. And so we have a lot of fun coming up with, and we work very diligently to come up with content that is relevant and timely year-round.
And so, what's the phase of your year now? I mean, I've been talking to a few people post seat. You're in the off season. You're in that planning mode. But the weeks to the season start seeming to be getting shorter and shorter. How do you make sure that all the planning that you're doing now, gets enacted on once the season happens? Because once the season happens, it is very much a grind. It's like game from game. And going on, but you've got these longer form goals. What are some of the things that you do in this off season now to make sure when you're in full season mode that you can still be ticking off those goals?
Yeah, I would say, and I think I've listened to a past podcast where a fellow NBA brethren of mine has highlighted that something feels like it's a double season, like the season never really ends. And so I think that was Kevin Cote who referenced that in the past conversation with you. But yeah, I would say that what best way to phrase this? We feel like it's a season year round. And so we're constantly evolving the way in which we're communicating, the way in which we're producing content, the way in which we're disseminating that content. And so we keep a very robust content calendar. It helps a ton in this business to be organized and to be forward-thinking and certainly to plan. And so we have a very conducive setup to exchanging ideas and ideation of stuff all the time. And so right now we're focused on aggregating stories that are being shared elsewhere and putting our own spin on it and sharing it. We are telling unique stories. Some of the examples I sent along are behind-the-scenes stories of some of our newer players, such as Willie Cauley-Stein, who was our number one pick this season. Today, for example, our owner, Vivek Ranadive, and our VP of basketball operations and GM, Vlade Divac, went down to the construction site and met with the workers and provided them lunch and did a tour. And so we're able to get content from that. We're preparing for Media Day and brainstorming the ways in which we can make the most out of Media Day, which is coming up in about a month. And then we're preparing for how we're going to activate all the social media channels throughout the season while still activating the social media channels now. So I would say, at every point throughout the year, there's different milestones. The current one that we're looking forward to is training camp. Then it will be opening night. Then it will be All-Star. And so having been in the business for a while, we have an understanding of the cadence. But the reality is, because we operate like a news organization and people are constantly thirsty for the connecting with the Sacramento Kings, we want to make sure to be able to quench that thirst with stories and photo galleries and videos and you name it, every day of the year.
Well, that's the thing. All sports teams now have turned on the fire hose, and the fans don't want it turned off. So there is that demand, and that you have to produce in the off season, and things like a content calendar is an absolute must to be able to stay on track of what you want to do, because otherwise, the season can run away from you as far as those big picture things of what you want to achieve overall.
Yeah, and I would say that because content has evolved so much, I would say when I first entered the business as an electronic media writer, writing was the main focus. Blogs had really just emerged onto the scene. I want to say 2 years later is when I became the team's reporter, and we did a lot of interviews with players on camera, and there was a significant focus on video. As content has evolved to today, where there's so many different social media channels, and compared to when I started in 2006, photos are very popular, and the content that is much easier to digest is performing the best in terms of the measurable statistics that we keep. So whether it's we're constantly learning from everyone in the business. Certainly we're comparing ourselves to not only fellow NBA teams, but brands that do an awesome job on digital and conveying content. So not only are we producing content, but we're also trying to learn and evolve and test and try new things and see what performs best so that we can continue to build and continue to tell a better story.
Yeah, I mean that's a big theme of a lot of people I talk to is that storytelling element, and then also, like you just said there, it's framing that content for that specific platform. So as new platforms evolve, whether they be Vine or Instagram or Snapchat and those kind of things, how do you frame the content that you can capture for those particular platforms? And that's the testing, that's that iteration that you've got to have to say, oh, we're going to put this out. How did this go? And I completely agree as far as watching what other brands are doing, especially outside the world of sports, to see what they're doing on those platforms and why that type of post is working, how that's working for them, and then how can you, I love the phrase "steal with pride," how you can take that, make a Kings version of that for your fans because you know the flavors they like, and put it out on those platforms. And it's a constant process of improvement to go, yes, that's a piece of content that framed in that way is exactly what our fans want.
Yeah, I would say in the same, we like to build upon the ideas of others, and in the same way, we hope to inspire others to build upon the ideas that we're creating. And so social media provides endless ways to do that in real time. And then once we actually do that, being able to measure their performance and keep ourselves honest in terms of what type of initiatives we're rolling out are effective is really important, so that the story that we're continually telling doesn't go stale or feel like it's being repetitious, etc. So there's absolutely endless ways that we can learn from people outside the business. I think oftentimes some of the greatest ideas come from something random that, when you're on a run or you're out and about and you see something that inspires another idea, as opposed to just focusing on how can the Kings relate to the Kings in this way.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to have a team and have the communication around the team that anyone can say, throw out the idea and say, what if we did this? How can we try this? Because if you're not trying new things, then your content can become stale, and you're not really pushing the envelope on what you can do on all the different platforms.
Yeah, you mentioned two things that hit home for me there. Both, first being that absolutely we're open to testing and trying, and if we're going to failing fast and learn from it, how can we improve it going forward? And then the other one that you mentioned is collaboration. I think oftentimes it may be overlooked that digital touches so many aspects of the organization. I mean, we literally are only as strong as our teammates around us, and so from the production team to the creative team to the ticket sales team to the PR team, all of our teammates play a part in our success on the digital front, from communication to video content to the designs that we're sharing to the cool partnership activations that we have. certainly, the digital team is on the front lines, but all of those behind us play a key role. And so whenever we achieve milestones in our social stats or content goes particularly well, it's a credit to the entire organization, all of our teammates who are helping us out.
I love that. I mean, as you know, that was one of my key themes and drivers for SEAT, is that how important collaboration is, amongst the tracks. But the more and more that the successful organisations I talk to, that's one of the key themes that they're saying, an event that's run really well goes terrific online, but it only goes terrific online because the event's been run really well. And so you need your event staff and the people who are out there running the event or running game day to be doing a terrific job. Then the digital will reflect and amplify that. But if somewhere along the line that falls down, digital can't save a poorly run event or a badly run game night, that kind of thing. So it's really important that we all do work hand in hand.
Absolutely. I mean, we're both a place for ideation and creation, but also dissemination. And so all of that takes teamwork to make possible.
Well, my last question for you, Andrew, is Christmas is not that far away, which is, makes this year go very quick. Do you wear an ugly Kings sweater to Christmas dinner?
100%. Yeah. How about yourself?
See, we're in the middle of summer in Australia when it's Christmas, so we don't normally need to be wearing an ugly sweater. They're not a thing in the Southern Hemisphere because we're probably normally wearing, if you bring out ugly board shorts, maybe I'll be wearing those on a Christmas. But I'll put a link in the show notes for the ugly Sacramento Kings sweater. They went completely viral. They're hilarious. I can absolutely see fans wearing them. Ugly sweaters are a thing. I have seen many ugly sweaters, but they were very, very funny and obviously loved by the fans. They really rally around them.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
They really rallied around the ugly sweaters. They loved.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they sold out really fast, and we had a lot of fun with creating the ridiculous photo gallery and content. It was a lot of fun. And I think you just thought of a new idea: ugly board shorts. I think that's something.
There you go. Well, we'll send me a pair of ugly board shorts, and I'll wear them when I go down to the beach. But thank you very much. First of all, where can people find you on the internet? I would certainly recommend everyone can visit kings.com, and we'd have a wide range of links there to follow the Sacramento Kings on social channels. And then if anyone had interest in connecting with me directly, I'd be happy to reach them on Twitter at @A_Nicholson. A_Nicholson. I'll have a link to your LinkedIn profile also in the show notes. Please send Andrew a tweet and tell him that you've listened to this episode. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you want some ugly Kings board shorts, I love the fact that we've come up with a new merch idea for you. I look forward to seeing people on the beach of Sacramento in ugly Kings board shorts. That'd be terrific.
Well, hey, thanks so much for having me on the show. It's great to talk to you, and I look forward to catching up again sometime soon.
All right. Cheers.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Andrew Nicholson. You can follow him and send him a tweet, please, that you've listened to this episode, A_Nicholson on Twitter. And Andrew, I'm very much looking forward to sending me some ugly Sacramento Kings board shorts. It's the first time we've ever come up with a new marketing product on the podcast, so I expect to see them to be coming out in your summer, and I will definitely be wearing a pair next year at San Francisco. Next year in Las Vegas for SEAT if you release the ugly Sacramento Kings board shorts. Question for the podcast: what did you think of the Kings NBA 3.0 strategy? Combination of tech, global, and social good. Do you have something similar for your team? What's your take on having that focus from everything from a Sacramento Kings point of view? Just to wrap up the podcast, I've been playing around with a few new options in Facebook advertising. There's new options now. Obviously, Instagram advertising is available for everybody. And it is just, they are purely dark posts. They're not, you can't boost a Instagram post as yet. So at the moment, just playing with them. There's also some other options with lead generation ads where you can get leads directly out of Facebook. And obviously video views is something that's working relatively well in both building awareness for a product or for an event, and also building up audiences that potentially might want to take up those options for that event. So if you're not using Business Manager yet, you're missing out on some really cool features. I have a special guide to help you set up your team for Business Manager. If you want to grab that guide, it's a very simple one that takes you through the steps to setting it up and getting everybody using Facebook in Business Manager. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/business manager and I will send you that guide for free. Until next week, you've been listening to the Sports Geek podcast. My name is Sean Callanan. You can send me a tweet at Sean Callanan or at Sean Callanan on Instagram, or Sean Callanan, funnily enough, on Snapchat. I've been playing around with Snapchat and keeping an eye on what teams are doing on Snapchat. If your team is recently got on Snapchat or want me to see something, please send me a snap or an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com, to check out what you're doing. I'm compiling a list of teams I'm going to publish pretty soon, and also taking a few screenshots to show a few examples of how Snapchat's being used. A couple of new teams this week. Liverpool, LFC_official, started snapping and have been snapping for a while, and their new manager came on board, and it was a really good Snapchat story around that. And Adelaide United, with the A-League season kicking off, AUFC_official also jumped on board Snapchat, and that is one of the things. You can't always secure your name on Snapchat. I wouldn't worry about that for now. It's pretty much the same as when Instagram got started. There might be some people landing and sitting on your names. I'm sure Snapchat will clean up the naming issue in due course. Absolutely loving the content that I'm seeing from the NFL and their subsequent deal that they've done with Snapchat. So definitely watch this space with Snapchat. Most teams, and I've had a few people questioning, how they're doing campaigns on Snapchat. Most of the Snapchat is pure engagement, and I think that's the place for it at the moment. Telling the story and telling the story of game day, which is where I think it's most useful. I think that's the place for the time being. Build up that audience and don't go too hard with campaign style things in Snapchat just for now. You really want to build up that audience. So until next week, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You've been listening to the Sports Geek podcast. You can follow Sports Geek on Facebook by going to facebook.com/sportsgeek. And thanks to Blair Hughes from Audio Boom for some audio from the NRL Grand Final. And this is what it sounded like at the end of this episode. You'll hear what it sounds like when Jonathan Thurston was lining up to win the NRL Premiership after the time had expired. Until next time, cheers.
Like the Sports Geek podcast? Find us on facebook.com/sportsgeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes.